Hey everyone, it's Charlene. Spooky season is almost here, so I am working with the lovely Layers Crow. I'm going to start by cutting out all of the pieces from a piece of black cardstock. All these pieces fit really well on a piece of A2 sized cardstock. Now, if you've ever seen a crow in real life, they have this really fun iridescent sheen to them. So to mimic that, I'm using some of the metallic silver ink, and I'm lightly ink blending over the areas that have embossed details on them. So you can see the bottom of the tail feathers, kind of the breast of the bird, as well as a little bit on the beak and on the head. And I'm not using very much ink at all. I'm just using a very tiny amount of ink, and this is going to give us that nice iridescent sheen. If you want to keep ink off of areas that you accidentally got some on, if you do it quickly, you can bring in a microfiber cloth or a paper towel and you can rub away some of that ink. So I decided I wanted to take a little bit of the ink off. I didn't want that beak to be quite so shiny or the main body part. I've got my glue here and I'm going to layer these up. This crow is really easy to layer up together. You've got the 4 pieces. First, you start by layering the second largest body piece on top of the main body piece, and you'll see that lines up using the head perfectly. So you can just start by lining the head up and then you will get it right on there. Now the next from largest body piece, and this lines up along the back and the shoulder perfectly. And then the wing. So this is going to have nice texture and detail as well as that lovely shine, and the wing lines right up with that shoulder detail that's on there. I decided to bring in one of these fun pearl stickers from the Sweet and Spooky Pearl Stickers to use as my crow's eye. There is a little die cut that you could use instead if you wanted to, but I thought that added a nice little touch to my crow. For my background, I'm going to use the lovely Layers bird cage. This came out, I believe, during the last release. It's a really beautiful ornate bird cage, and I've cut some of the pieces out in black and then some of them out in some silver foil cardstock. This large die is very intricate. That creates the main base of the bird cage. So I'm coming in here with a glass nail file that I have that has a pointed tip. I like to use this if I get any kind of little paper fuzzies on the edges of my die cuts. Because of the particular paper I'm working with, this one tends to have a little bit more. And so I just run the edge of that glass nail file right along the pieces, and it gets all of those little fuzzies off. Works really, really well. Now I have these 2 pieces that are going to go along the base of the birdcage to add some fun detail. One of them cuts out little inset circles, and then one of them is the full piece. I did the full piece in the foil cardstock because we're going to have that foil cardstock peeking through, and it'll give us that little bit of shine that I always like to add to a card. We'll layer those up. Sorry, I'm a bit off camera there for a moment, but you just pinch around the edges. And this base piece, you could use a different color here, but I wanted to keep everything kind of dark and moody. So the base piece here goes right along the bottom of the bird cage, and you just have the little feet sticking out. There's some nice details on that piece that you'll see here when I put everything together and turn it in the light. And then the piece with the foil cardstock I put together, I'm layering right over the top of that. So these add these fun, nice little details that really bring the piece up a notch. Now for the top of the bird cage, there's a little ring, and there's 2 pieces to it. You can see there I've got one, the base piece in the silver foil cardstock, and then the black piece. Now I'm going to put that there with my tweezers. That is a good way when you're working with some type of slick cardstock like the foil cardstock that can sometimes take a little while to adhere. That's a great way to hold your piece in place while it's drying, is just to use your reverse tweezers and pinch those items together so that they have a chance to dry. Now there is another piece that mimics that bottom piece with the circle detail, and that goes right along the top of the bird cage, so you have this really nice cohesive look to the bird cage. You could layer this up if you wanted to, and there's other pieces as well. There's a perch and a door and some little details, but I didn't want to use those. I want the focus on the crow. Here we have the Sweet and Spooky double-sided pattern paper pad. These have some really fun designs. You've got some like not quite traditional Halloween colors, but I really like them because it's something different. So I like that paper pad a lot. I pulled out a piece that is this kind of vintagey, spooky looking spider web piece. I thought that would go really well. And I'm going to glue it here to an A2 sized piece of cardstock. So my pattern paper piece is cut down to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches, and that's going to give me an 1/8 of an inch black border going all the way around. Once I've added my glue, I could just add it to the center here, making sure I get a nice even border. And now I'm going to come along and glue my entire bird cage to my card panel. I'm just going to dot here and there along the die because it is very delicate. You could use a double-sided adhesive sheet before you die cut this out if you wanted to, but really you don't have to have glue all over the entire thing. If you just dot here and there, as long as there's enough adhesive on there to generally hold the piece down, and you don't have to cover the entire thing. I added some foam tape to the back of my crow to give it a little bit of dimension, help it to pop off the card there. And now I'm going to come in and use the Something to Crow About stamps and dies. This one says, I just crowed to say I love you. I think it's a fun little pun. So I'm going to stamp this with some clear embossing ink. First, I'll use my anti-static powder tool. That can be very helpful when you're trying to heat emboss. And I'm going to stamp this out in clear embossing ink. First, rubbing the stamp, make sure that it's nice and ready to go. Get a good coating of that embossing ink on there and stamp it over onto the cardstock. I'm going to heat emboss this in white, so I'm going to use a super fine detail embossing powder. I like to sprinkle it on and tap, and then sprinkle it on and tap. Now, my heat tool's nice and hot before I start, so that way it melts quickly, and I just move right along there as soon as the embossing powder has melted. And you can see how nice the white embossing powder pops against that black background. I did cut out 2 extra die cuts so that I could layer them up back behind our heat embossed piece. This is going to give this some dimension on the front of the card, but it's going to be nice and strong, and I didn't want to try and fit lots of little pieces of foam tape back behind there either. It makes it a lot easier to do it this way. So adding some glue now to the stacked up piece, and I'm going to put this down towards the bottom right hand third of the card. I use this spot a lot, but it works really, really well for sentiments. I just find it flows well with cards. Next, we can glue the whole thing to an A2 sized card base, adding some glue to the back of my panel there, and then I'll just bring my card base corner to corner here and make sure it's nice and tight. That finishes up our card. I hope you guys picked up some tips and tricks today. Doesn't this look cool? It's like a vintage, almost spooky Valentine, I want to say. All right, guys, please be sure to like and subscribe, as well as hit that notification bell so that I can continue to bring you more crafty content in the future. Until next time, happy crafting.